again for another episode of On the Grill, heading into round 4 of AFL HCC. And what a wet week it's been, out of control. I think that's been probably the number one news of the week, right up and down the eastern seaboard. It's been out of control. But thanks for joining us, and we're waiting on our good friend Ash Borg to join us. But in the meantime, you've got me and the very reliable Shane Darwin, who's been there every week without fail so far after I had a week off last week.
Well,
Shane, how are you, mate?
Don't jinx me too much. I've probably got to take a week off in a bit. But anyway, that's fine. It does. I don't know about you, Chop, but it feels like it was so long ago since we did footy. I'm doing it on the Friday instead of the Saturday. It feels like we haven't been to the footy for weeks, but it's only been 7 days today, and very excited to get some games in tomorrow. Geez, we were lucky last weekend as well. Like I was looking all through last week, and I thought the rain was going to hit Friday, and then it was going to hit Saturday, but we did manage to miss it. It didn't start raining in sort of earnest until Sunday, but gee whiz, hasn't it been wet since then?
We got the full round of fixtures, luckily, and I believe I heard that the game up at Maitland between Terrigal and Maitland, they literally just got the final siren in before the heavens opened up, and it just poured down. So we could probably be thankful that New South Wales has let us have our first 3 rounds relatively unaffected, but not the case this weekend, unfortunately. There's one round of fixtures already cancelled and rescheduled for later on in the year, which is a real shame. But look, the way the weather's fallen in recent years, we probably should be thankful that we haven't lost a round already by now. But hopefully that won't have too much of an impact on the season overall. But I guess we'll talk about that in a little bit. But how's it been your way? I literally have been watching the banks of my creek just behind me over here all week, just waiting for them to breach and just inundate me with the flooding. But it's held off so far. But every time it comes down, it just thumps that hard that I go, oh, well, training will be off for every club tonight for sure. But then I wait for half my house to wash away.
Yeah, well, listen, we had, there was a bit of a storm cell came over Newcastle and sort of hit that Merriweather, Adamstown, Broadmeadow patch on Wednesday afternoon. And I literally could have rowed a kayak to the other side of the road. There was literally water over the whole road. I thought I was going to lose a bit of damage in my van, but thankfully it went up above the door line, but nothing got in. I was like, oh, phew.
It didn't wash away the broadcast unit van.
No, it didn't wash away the broadcast unit van, so that'll be out in force tomorrow. So
excellent.
And unfortunately, one of the side effects that is ground closures. And as you did sort of hint to there, we have lost the Terrigal versus Newcastle City games that were scheduled for number 1.
Was the Bar TV match of the round 2, wasn't it?
It was going to be our match of the round 2, but we'll tell you all about that because we are moving, and that's there's always going to be a match of the round. It's just a matter of where it is, so we will have a slightly revised broadcast tomorrow. But it's a bit of a shame, obviously, Newcastle and Terrigal sitting top of the men's ladder, especially. That did look like a good game. But the league, to their credit, have got a bit of forward thinking, and they've got that rain round the 12th of July. So those games just get moved on to the 12th of July. It does change the season a little bit for those teams, but that is what it is. We've got to be a bit flexible, don't we?
Well, I think the only thing it will really affect is probably ladder positions at this time of the year, but it would have been nice to see who was going to end up with that outright top position, I reckon, between the Panthers and the Blues. But we'll wait until that happens because that's going to be a match of the sharpshooters by the look of things, going by recent rounds. There's just some powerful forwards in those two men's sides, that's for sure. So we'll wait and see what happens there in July.
Yeah, and Bish and his men will have to sit tight there. They had obviously the bye in round 1, and then they've played a couple. Then they've got a washout. Then they've got a rep game coming up. So
I think they're used to that. Yeah. I think they're used to that out at Terrigal Avoca. They've had that kind of run. They did. They certainly did. But well, before we have Mr. Borg join us, he shouldn't be too far away. We may as well get stuck straight into some of the results of last week, which was the women's competition. Wow, it was our legitimate top 3 versus our legitimate next 3, I guess you could say, in terms of how that went, barring, of course, the side that had the bye on the weekend. But some incredible results. And I had a chat with Andy Baldwin on Monday night on our Chasing Bags and Waving Flags episode. And I tell you what, the girls who haven't had a bag yet so far just came out in force with some massive hauls right across the region on the weekend. There were bags everywhere. I think 6 all up.
Yeah, wow. There was a lot of goals scored. Unfortunately, not many scored by the three losing teams. Only 1 point
1 point.
between those three teams that went down. It was a very one-sided weekend,
I don't know
unfortunately.
if I can ever recall seeing that where three teams scored 1 point amass between them for the week. So probably not the most ideal set of results, but not entirely unexpected at the same time, was it?
No, and listen, we know where the league's at, and we talk all the time about the top tier and the next tier down, and this was just one of those scheduling rounds where the top tier played that lower tier, and yeah, the results went as expected. Yeah,
Literally pulverized.
yeah,
It wasn't it, and no disrespect intended there for the sides that were on the shellacking end of it, but we certainly hope. The great game that we covered was Warners Bay, of course, and Cardiff. And pleased to say there was, although it was only 9 points, it was a 9 point reduction in the margin from the same match last year. So if you look at it in terms of that, there's an improvement there for the Warners Bay side. But and not playing no Amy Pittman in that side either. So you would suggest that that's sort of some forward movement for the Warners Bay girls, but still a fair bit of room to make up there.
yeah, there is, there is. So I suppose we won't dwell too much on those games. We'll run through
Nah,
the scores. Cardiff, as you mentioned, won there 19-14, 128 to Warners Bay, no score. Killarney Vale easily accounted for Singleton 24-22, 166 to no score. And in the last game there, the entrance Bateau Bay didn't manage to score 1 point, but Newcastle City too strong, 19-17, 131. So a very strong showing from our three premiership favourites, really cementing themselves at the top of the table.
absolutely. If anything, if we can grow into it a little bit, I'd like to mention the bag raiders for that particular round. There was plenty of them. I think when you have that kind of an effort, we all know how much we love seeing a bag of goals kicked every game. So in the game that we covered in particular, there was a couple of new superstars unearthed. Really, wasn't there?
Yeah, well, I missed that one, but we because I was sort of a little bit late to the games on the weekend, but we had some fairly high end soccer players joining the party and kicking a few goals as well, didn't we?
Yeah, we sure did. I can't. I should have checked this up. I can't remember her last name. Galagos was. We'll call her the Galagos Islands for this particular case. But she was very, very good. A new soccer player who's joined the Cardiff Hawks this week. But the big star of the show probably was Melina Ayres Rock. She's been given the title of. So she kicked six in her first ever game, I believe. Come over from Melbourne Victory in the Women's A League. So she was a very exciting player to watch. And I think it was worth mentioning, I think Shelby Newton kicked 3 goals as well in a really good effort in that forward
Yeah,
line.
she certainly did. And probably the one thing that I loved out of that game was what it did to the back page of the Newcastle Herald the following morning. I was sitting there having my coffee on the Saturday morning, and I saw AFL HCC, taking pride on the back page of the paper, and then a good wrap up on the inside talking about Melina Ayres and the Islands as well. With their efforts. So fantastic for the league to get that back page recognition in the Newcastle Herald. We don't get it that often with the AFL, and it's lovely to see it there.
So Cardiff not only uncovering a couple of superstars, but maybe a couple of media darlings as well.
There you go. That's the secret.
Yep, that's what it is. Yep, just pilfer a quality player from another code, and a big star from another code, and you get back page of the Newcastle Herald. That's what it takes.
Yep. Well, any way we can do it is a good way.
Whatever it takes, mate. At the end of the day, on the Killarney Vale versus Singleton Roosters game, we had a couple of what do we call them? Bags. Sorry, that's simple as that. Emerson Squires is a name I don't recognise straight off the bat, especially not as a renowned goal kicker. But 5 goals there, and mate, the biggest haul for the year for any single player. Mia Wilson just doesn't even know about the shadow that may have been left by Crystal Brown there. She's just emerged from that and kicked 8 majors. How good's that?
Well, that's right. If memory serves me right, she was our 2023 leading goal kicker for the year as well, Mia Wilson. And
Mm,
then obviously Crystal Brown came along last year, and they had to share the spoils a little bit. But yeah, Mia's back, and she's booting goals, which is great to see.
that's a massive haul, isn't it? 8 goals. You've got to be impressed with that.
Yeah, for sure. So things really working well for Killarney. For Killarney Vale, we did talk about pre-season. How would they gel? How would they sit? And they're looking strong. Fantastic to see.
They sure are. I mean, they don't look like they've really maybe one little hiccup so far this year, but they don't look like they're taking a backward step. They're on track to try and defend that premiership well and truly, I think.
Well, talking about big forwards who like kicking goals, we saw Kate Handley with the Newcastle City get herself a bag there with the 6 goals.
She sure did.
Yeah, and
Massive
then
effort.
Billy Davies joined the party and got a bag with 5 as well. So you're right there. What was that? Six bag raiders?
Five, actually five.
Yep.
Five it turned out, but yeah, five bags for the girls. So we've got 4 bag raiders for the boys. We'll talk about them shortly, but yeah, to have the girls just come out, and obviously I was a little inundated with graphics work that I had to do this week. So you'll have to wait for them, ladies. They'll come out before too long. Also, if I can get some action shots of some of those girls, would be very helpful, because I kind of scour the internet and it's hard to find them. So if any of those clubs have got anything, they can forward me some good action shots of those girls of their respective clubs that kick bags, and we can try and highlight them a little bit with some of our graphics work that we like to do here. But yeah, Kate Handley, she's done very well there with 6. So that's a huge haul. And Billy Davies, again, another name, a new face, or I guess they're at Newcastle City. Forgive me if I'm wrong. Certainly not one that I remember being a noted goal kicker, but she's thereabouts, that's for sure. As Mr. Borg joins us.
Hello, everybody. How's it going?
G'day, mate. You look very formal today. You've either just got home from work or court. Which one?
Literally straight from, well, both.
Nice.
No, it's been a week, mate. That's for sure. It's involved both. So yeah.
Any flooding your way? Any flooding your way this week, mate? We were just talking about the rain and how that's probably been the biggest news this week. But poor old Shane Dale, we nearly had the broadcast unit truck washed away this week, apparently.
Yeah, well, we could have hosted a game, I reckon, at Singleton this week. It wasn't too bad in the rain department. I think Tuesday was the worst day of it. But, yeah, I think it wasn't too bad apart from that. A bit disappointing seeing a couple of games called off, but can't do much of council's closed grounds. And I think
that's right. I don't know if anyone, even myself, I know how much I like to argue with, the closure of grounds, but I found it very hard to argue with it this week. I can't even walk to my car without wearing gum boots at the moment. Wow. It's out of control.
Yeah, unbelievable. I mean, up here in the Hunter, it was pretty good. I heard a rumour during the week they were going to take Newcastle City and Terrigal to Muswellbrook to play. So, but I don't know if that was feasible. I think they did try all their options according to what I know in the league, and I think the sensible option is to wait until the wet weather round, and that'll be something for Bar TV to cover in the wet weather round as well.
Yeah, well, that in itself is
Terrigal to Muswellbrook. That'd be a fair drive for the Panthers.
Yeah, good 2 hours, it is 2.5 at least.
It's a crazy bus trip every single time, I can assure you. But
pubs in between.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's crazy stuff with the weather. Let's hope it eases up. I mean, we've been lucky for the first 3 rounds, haven't we? So it was going to come before too long. I just hope they press the stop button pretty soon.
Yes, and so Ash, we've just covered the women's results and
been watching, boys.
Oh, good stuff,
fantastic. Been watching along. Yeah, you've got.
Was there anything? I didn't quite pick up what you said there. I might be breaking up a little bit here.
Yeah, that's all right. Got the bag raiders for the women, which is great. And I think you've
Was there anything you wanted to add, Ash? It was
not really. It
was a great call for ANZAC Day.
I think you guys nailed what you said about the Women's Cup round last week. I think it's one that we probably be best for getting in terms of results. Fair play to the sides that kicked bags of goals and did destructive damage on the lower ranked sides, but I think the testing materials when they play each other.
Yeah, well, if anything, they'll be sizing each other up pretty carefully or pretty closely after that round, won't they? Cardiff, Killarney Vale and Newcastle City Blues. I reckon they'll be watching each other pretty closely after that, because they all would have come off the ground feeling pretty good about those sizable wins. But when they look at the results and see that their direct opponents, the ones that they're going to be playing off against to play in the grand final, got equally sizable wins, I reckon it would keep everything in check for those front-running sides, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. It's fair play to Mia Wilson too. She's on top of the goal kicking now with 12, and
Yeah.
I believe Kate Hanley's the other double-digit goal scorer on 10. So it's good. It's shaping up to be a good race for the goal kicking this year for the women.
It certainly is, and a few new faces popping up there with bags too. So we're pretty excited to see that.
Yeah, absolutely.
How good do you reckon? Like after watching her game on the weekend, boys, Melina Ayres, I reckon it was one of the most exciting debuts I've ever seen. I've been raving about her all week. Ayres Rock, of course. Is she like in for the season? Is she, because the way she played, she looks like she could be well and truly a threat for that goal kicking award for the women this year. She just looked like she knew exactly where to find those big sticks and how to work around the ground too. I thought her spatial awareness and her discipline holding off the packs in particular, and knowing when to approach that congestion, and her cleanliness with the ball, especially below her hands. One of the finest looking players in the competition straight off the bat. I think she looks like she could be, 30 goals for the season easily, and that would put her right up there in amongst the top goal kickers for the year. Would you guys agree with that?
Well, they've got she's definitely a threat anywhere she's going to be around the ground. I believe that if you put her up forward, she's definitely going to be a target player for Cardiff in the cup competition. Stick her in the midfield. She's got the speed and the fitness to go and run all day. Really, it's just the hand-eye coordination, which is the great thing that we watched on the weekend, on the Friday. It's just transferring that football, that soccer skill, as we call it, into an AFL skill, and it was terrific to watch. Interestingly, fellas, I'm just having a look at Cardiff's plate side this week because they haven't got a cup team this week, and Maddie Galagos is lining up in the plate team against Maitland this week. So I reckon even though Maitland have been very good in plate and they won by about 80 points last week, they're going to have a real tough time playing on Maddie Galagos. She's a superstar in her comp, and I think she's going to be very good in the plate.
Yeah, well, that's
for sure.
I thought the arrangement there was they were only going to play the odd game when the football / soccer season allowed them. To hear she's going out for a run of plate is a positive sign. It shows they're obviously pretty keen to get a few games under the girls.
She definitely enjoyed the game then. There's no doubt about that. I mean, that's one of the big things, is seeing if they enjoy the changing code. She obviously enjoyed it if she's putting her hand up again for a second grade game. So, and they're keen to sort of fine tune her skills a little bit. That was probably both of those girls got better and better as the game went. It just, the more time they had on the ground, just the better they were. So that's exciting for Cardiff. Could be the difference when the business end of the season comes around.
Yeah,
sure. Absolutely. I think, they'll definitely play a role in the final series if they get to that point and get to play it. So it'll be interesting to see where they go.
Yep.
Yep, a little bit closer in the men's comp. Of course, we were present for the ANZAC Day clash, which was a fantastic game. It was neck and neck through the first half, and we saw Warners Bay up at quarter time. Cardiff snuck their noses in front at halftime, but in the end, Warners Bay too strong in the last half. They're running out winners 12-11-83 to 8-5-53. It was an enjoyable game of footy to watch, played in that Wirral ANZAC spirit, and plenty of tough action across the ground. I loved being on the end of the microphone as well for a little bit. So thank you, boys, for letting me jump in there and do that. I'm back on the camera again this week, however. Corey, you've seen a lot of these ANZAC Day games. How did that one rate for you, and what were your thoughts?
Oh, great! Anzac Day is probably my other than grand final day. It's probably my favourite round of the year now. Absolutely love it. I love the spirit. I love the ceremony that we get in the middle of it. We really do embrace that Anzac tradition. But most of all, I love that these two sides just really get behind the whole Anzac, the whole, I guess, the tradition of the courage and the nobility and the dignity and respect of Anzac Day, and the same with the girls as well. But in particular, the boys, they play with such intensity and such determination. It's one of those games where you can just see that both of those sides desperately want to win that game for more reasons than just the 4 points that are up for grabs. And the fact that it was as close a tussle as it was, and it was two very different styles of footy, I thought, that were coming up against each other, but both very effective in their own right. And in the end, I think it was the firepower of the Warners Bay Bulldogs that got them there. And what I particularly liked was we saw a Warners Bay Football Club that looked like they've turned their final corner. in terms of heading down that straight towards a grand final appearance after all these years and a few years underneath Harkness. They look to me like they're absolutely the real deal. They've ironed out the creases, they've got the personnel, and they're ready to take it all the way.
Yeah, couldn't agree with you more, Chop, especially the first bit, mate. The Anzac Day game between these two sides, the tradition that these two clubs have created has been marvellous for the AFL Hunter Central Coast. The way they do it, the way they build the week, the way they present the Anzac ceremony, Anzac Day medalists across the board. It's just a beautiful tradition that both clubs have got. They've done it so well for over, I believe it's 8 years, maybe even a bit more than that. I just can't remember the first year. Fair play to both sides for making it happen and continuing it. The women are building in that respect, and I think the disparity between the teams is the issue at the moment. If Warners Bay can get closer, that would make such a big day for both of them. But for the males, the men cup footballers, it's just ingrained, and the toughness of the match is just superb. My personal thoughts on the game and were, like Shane said, the two sides were close by halftime, but once again, and for the second week in a row, Cardiff have been outscored very heavily in the second half, and it now adds up now to 21 goals to 2 over the last 2 games in second halves.
Wow.
That is absolutely
massive,
damaging. I believe it might even be a little bit less than that, but I'm pretty sure it's 20 or 21 goals to 2 in second halves in the last 2 weeks. That's just not where a side looking to win a premiership can be.
Especially after grand final appearance last year too, isn't it?
Exactly, mate. Yeah, Warners Bay's firepower, like you said, they're tremendous. Have they turned the corner? They're getting there. They're slowly approaching it. But look, Zach Munns has performed. The two Zacks I thought were the two best on grounds. Zach Munns, Zach Lauritsen were outstanding. Zach Lauritsen, I thought, and rightly so, won the Anzac Day medal for best on ground in the Cup. He was outstanding. Love Seb Thomas. Riley Hawes, they're just dangerous up forward, and you need someone good on them. Otherwise, they're going to cut you up. And, they didn't exactly cut Cardiff up in this match, but they put a good defender on them, and that's when you get the likes of Zach Munns and, your midfielders coming through kicking goals. Corey Deverill just did as he liked around the ground. He was damaging everywhere, and he got plenty of touches of the football. And Warners Bay, they just demonstrated their credentials, their top 3 credentials on Friday. But Cardiff, I think we saw some signs of life. I liked Luca Conlon's game, and I really enjoyed watching Jake Sullivan. I liked his in and under play. He's got some skills. He's tough and he's uncompromising. I really enjoyed that, and I think they need more of that. Jackson Boothler started really well in the first quarter. Second quarter, he kept going, but at second half he petered out, maybe just looking at a bit of fitness there. I don't know. But I was quite impressed with Lockie Manning. He just tended to play down back and do some good things in the back half and tried to repel for Cardiff. But that second half's got to be second halves have got to be worrying the Hawks, surely.
What about the goal kickers for Cardiff? We got Jack Pratt had a fantastic game, kicking 3 goals. I think he had a real good captain's knock. And a bit of a revelation for Cardiff with Sam Howard playing up forward, kicking 3 first half goals as well. But the fact that he couldn't get any more in the second half is probably a testament to their second half fade, the Cardiff Hawks there, I think. But it was great to see him up there. He kicked very straight for a guy who spent his entire career virtually, I guess, in the back line. I imagine that's correct. But still good to see him do that. And just on the flip side, that with the Zach thing, don't you reckon it was kind of ironic that on Anzac Day we saw Anzac and Anzac just perform well? It was like Anzac everywhere. So we had Zacks at either end of the ground. I just thought that was fantastic. The 2 best players on the ground for us were both Zacks. So
yes. Good call. And listen, I want to shout out to Max Collins. He didn't have much luck in front of the sticks. His kicking was pretty average, and I think we probably gave him a little bit of a serve during the game. So, Max, no hard feelings there, mate. You got to get your kicking better, that's for sure. But his marking skills and getting the ball were outstanding. I thought that was probably the best game I've seen him play. I loved what he did around the ground, and if he tidied that kicking up, he would have had a bag himself. So, little bit unlucky there for Max with the kicking. Seb Thomas also good, couple of goals, and once again he was in under everywhere as well. So they showed us what they had. We've been calling out Warners Bay, saying, do they have a first quarter? They're too slow to start. They came out and they kicked 6 goals, one, and they really sort of shut us down with that one. My challenge to them now is they don't have a second quarter. Only 4 points in the second quarter. Do Warners Bay have a second quarter?
I
Well,
really
the starts
enjoyed the rucks. I enjoyed Hunter Schultz and Harper Murray for both sides in the ruck for both teams.
Yeah.
They're quite good young blokes, and they
young blokes, yeah.
good leaps, good run. Impressed with Hunter Schultz. Actually, tried really hard for Cardiff to continue to follow up his work. Just needed a few other guys to go with him, but I think Warners Bay are on the up and up, and Cardiff are going to have a test this weekend.
The one thing that Warners Bay have needed to work on with their starts, that's been the thing. They've become renowned for being able to chase sides down, even quality sides, chase them down when they've got a little bit of lead on them. But they wanted a good start. They definitely got that. They probably, as you said, Shane, they probably didn't follow that up as well as they would have liked to in the second half. But whatever words Nath Harkness gave them at half time were resounding in the end, because they came back out in the second half and just put the game away, didn't they? So and on the Max Collins thing, well, we know he's a multiple goal kicker on most weeks, and he knows how to find them. He didn't find them on the weekend, but that's just testament to the fact that they got firepower now this year, because he'll be back, he'll bounce back, he'll probably kick a bag this week. I wouldn't be surprised, because I imagine he'd be a bit down on himself for not kicking as straight as he could have, and his radar was a bit off even for him, but can't deny he clunks marks from anywhere. He's got one of the safest set of hands in the air, I reckon, and on at ground level as well for a guy his size. So yeah, dangerous signs there.
Yep, indeed. Out at Max McMahon, we saw Maitland take on the Terrigal Avoca Panthers. On paper, I think before that game, we thought it might have been a relatively big margin. At quarter time, Maitland Saints had kicked 3 goals to Terrigal's 5, so it was relatively tight at quarter time. Unfortunately, Terrigal accelerating away there. Maitland unable to go with them. Ended up winning 16-14, 110 to 6-5, 41. Ashley, you managed to see a little bit of that game towards the end there. What can you tell us about that one?
Yeah, well, I was calling the Zone Premier League in the Newcastle football competition there at South Maitland, and my daughter and I went, we'll go down to Max McMahon Oval on the way back and have a catch of the Maitland Terrigal game. What I did see is Maitland really work hard in that last term, and it doesn't reflect the scoreboard, because when I got there, it was 3/4 time, and Terrigal Avoca were already in front by 41 points at that point, and they've ended up winning this game by 59, but it didn't look like it was that far apart, if I'm being honest. They kicked 4 goals, 6 to 2 behinds in the last term, Terrigal, but it didn't, I think it's a typical Terrigal performance. You don't notice the score piling up, but all of a sudden you're 5 goals down.
They're very good like that, aren't they?
Yeah, I notice that every week with them, and even having umpired them for years, they dominate sides through physical presence and through ball possession and things like that. But they don't look like they're dismantling sides, but they just they beat you by big margins, and all of a sudden you look up at the scoreboard and they're 30 points up, 50 points up, 60 points up. And that's what it looked like on Saturday at Max McMahon. Really loved watching Harrison Pitt in that last quarter. He was just so good at making space for himself in the full forward line. Watching Jack Grimm and Lee do so well in that last quarter, and then went off with what I think might have been an arm injury. Hope he's okay, although he gets a couple of weeks to recover. Hope he's good for the rep game, because I think
he's part robot too, Jack Grimm and Lee.
Yeah, well, I hope he's all right, because he was he came off the ground relatively sore. I know Mackenzie Leecroft came off with an injury, and
he's got a couple of weeks too.
That looks like it's a little bit more than a couple of weeks. Yep. But they just look like a side that's ready to dominate the competition again, like they've done for so many years. They had a little blip last year.
Did you get a look at the new player that they got there? Good.
If I'm being honest, I didn't really notice him a great deal. He's a bit of a silent assassin, I think. But watching Maitland, their same players stood up in that last term that I was there for, and I was only there a quarter, so You can't be too critical of sides. But what I did notice about Maitland this week were they tried to be a little bit more direct. And I think fair play to if that's what you're gonna if that's what you need to do, then that's what you need to do. You can't be that side that turns the ball over. I was standing with Hugh Matheson in that last term, and he tended to agree. We just need to be more direct, and we've got the side to do it. The times that they weren't direct were the times Terrigal punished them. And that was pretty much the difference in that last term. Every time Maitland couldn't do something right or they went short and turned over, Terrigal just bounced and went kick, Harrison pick, goal.
They again looking at the scoreline, they need some more firepower. They can't keep relying on Ryland Hoffman to kick more, 10 goals a week to win. He kicked 3 on the weekend. You can't expect anything more than that from the Rain Man. I think that's a great output for any full forward. It makes it hard when your full forward at the opposite end is kicking 7 in his debut game for the competition. And you also know that, their midfield probably can give just as much delivery to their forwards at Maitland as what they do at Terrigal. It's just that Terrigal have got the fellas at the end there that can finish it off. And you'd see that by how many, I think how many goal kickers they ended up having in the end too. It was, even though Pitt kicked 7, they still had plenty of other people contributing on the scoreboard. The thing that's dangerous about the Terrigal Avoca Panthers is they can finish a game with 30% of the ball in their possession, but they are just so effective with it and so correct with their disposal and accurate that they'll still beat you by 5 or 10 goals. And that's the difference, and that's what you're talking about, Ash, when you say that 100%. You don't realise that they're compiling a score on you. It's because a lot of the time they're just harassing the opposition so much when they have the ball. The opposition can have it 60 or 70% of the game. They're still going to get beaten because of how effective and direct and accurate the Terrigal Avoca Panthers are. And Bishy's been drilling that into his group for over a decade now, of that, making sure you hit your 20s and 30s in that level of intensity under one step, knowing exactly where your players are, knowing the set spots on the ground where the ball needs to go. That's been sort of drilled into those players for a long, long time. They're still getting that right. And we see it on the flip side when we saw Maitland in round 1, I think it was, they had plenty of the ball, plenty of opportunity, and it was just that second and third and fourth kick sometimes before they were entering the forward line that just was ineffective and it results in a turnover. You do that against Terrigal and they go straight up there and score on you.
Yeah, and it's interesting too. I mean, you're looking at Maitland. They lost the game by 69 points. The week before, the grand finals from last year, Cardiff lost by 62 points. So Maitland have had a good dig. They got DJ Stewart back for this one. We missed seeing him in round 1. He was out injured. So he's only going to get better with a bit of fitness under him. He might give them a little bit of that sort of, I suppose, run and flare into the forward line with Ryan, with Hoffman being the big tall timber. So there's some real upside, I think, for Maitland. And just 1 point on Jack Lee. The teams did come out for the Terrigal City game, and Jack Lee wasn't named. So it looks as though he could be out. Obviously, having this week off probably won't be a negative there. And then obviously the rep game the week after does give him a couple of weeks to come back from injury as well.
Unless he plays.
Yeah, well, I will say something about DJ Stewart. I watched him in that last quarter, and he had a real big effort for a hanger in about the 15th, 16th minute. Went up real high, went up a bit too early. Threw his weight around. I know he hasn't got a lot of weight to throw around, but, gee, he put on some good hits, a couple of good shepherds, lovely couple of tackles in that last term, and really ran and chased hard. So I hope that's a good sign of things to come for him because he's a handy player.
Yeah, we're a fan of him in the commentary box. There's no doubt about that. So, yeah, he'd be a welcome return. He's got a great turn of speed. He's very exciting, very dynamic in the air. There's no doubt about that. So, yeah, hopefully. And we know he can kick sort of have a 3 or 4 goal haul too. So, yeah, hopefully we see that a few times for him. They've got the midfield to be able to just keep giving them plenty of supply. There's no doubt about that. So, yeah, we'll see how they emerge.
Yeah. And our last game last week was the Battle of the Blues. Obviously, Newcastle City taking on the Entrance Bateau Bay. We talked last week actually about improvement for the Entrance Bateau Bay, and we sort of said they needed to be better than the 15 goals, which was their best result last week. They went ahead and did that. They ended up only losing by just under the 10 goals. So some good signs there. It was 12-12-84 for Newcastle City, 3-8-26 for the Entrance Bateau Bay. So signs of improvement. That's all we can ask about.
Massive.
It's still a new club into this cup game, and they're moving in the right direction.
Yeah, I'm wondering about the style of footy they might have played, because Newcastle City jumped out of the blocks. They kicked 7 goals in the first half, and the entrance Bateau Bay didn't score a goal in the first half. They didn't score a point in the first quarter.
Yep.
They waited until 3/4 time to kick their first goal, and then they kicked a couple towards the end to make it a little bit more respectable. I'm not sure where. I don't know, so I'm only just speculating whether they tried to be a bit more defensive against Newcastle City, knowing that what was going to come at them. But I mean, that's only speculation. So if I can get the entrance Bateau Bay Blues can give us a bit of feedback there about the game. That'd be great. But it was the scoreline. The scoreline actually doesn't look too bad for them in terms of
not at all
size of the loss. And fair play to them to holding City to under 100, because that would have been the first time they would have done that as well. So fair play to the guys. And in your best was Max Itiiwi and Besley, Nath Hughes, Michael Besley, Pat Murphy. So, they're same players creeping in. I heard Liam Pass did okay as well. They just keep having a go and turning up each week. And that's all you ask from sides at that sort of middle to bottom tier. The more they have a go against these cities and Terrigals and Killarney Vales and Warners Bays, the more competitive they're going to be over a period of time as they get used to their skills. And I think it's only on the way up for the entrance Bateau Bay, and fair play to them for the way they've gone about it.
But the little bit I've heard about that game, and also the game they played the week before against Warners Bay, is they're a much improved footy side. They are very much on the right direction, and they're a highlight for me. They're a highlight in the league at the moment, because they really are a testament to what is required from a football club to just continue to work and ply their trade and get better and improve and make themselves at a level that is competitive at Cup. By all intents and purposes, a 54 or 56 point deficit, I think, in the end, or something thereabouts, under 10 goals, huge improvement from against what is the front runner for the premiership again this year, without a doubt. And that is a massive effort. Max Atiiwi kept the big tractor goalless for the game, and that's massive, because Max is barely 17 years old, and we know how good Jordan Deere is as a footballer, and we dearly love what he's doing there. But Max Atiiwi is somebody who he can play forward as well. I've been coaching him in under 15s in a premiership just a couple of years ago, and he's a massive presence in the forward line as well. They've got a couple of other young guys that are yet still to come in. They were without the Allisons, and I believe they're still about this year, Kobe and Brady Allison. They're two powerful boys in that side that'll come and help bolster their defensive line. So, what it was that kept them scoreless until the latter stage of the game, not sure. And that might be something that Mitch Eade will be looking at to try and do that. But effectively, to keep the Newcastle City powerful forward line, that is artillery left, right and centre up there, to keep them just to 12 goals for the game at home in round 3 when they're up and about too, I think is absolutely magnificent, and certainly a very, very clear comment that the entrance Bateau Bay are heading in the right direction. So there's a lot of credit there. They had, of course, the Sharpie back in the side. I think he got one for the weekend.
Yep.
So considering the two bag raiders leading into that game kicked 1 goal between them is an interesting comment. But I'll tell you what was interesting. Jack Woodhams, who won our bar raise of the week before, had a run in. I think both his brothers were playing in this plate game, and he had a run in there, kicked himself 8, I believe it was.
Yep, trying to keep up with Billy Barton.
Yeah, well, trying to keep Billy Barton honest.
Someone needs to compete with him.
No, it's good. Good work on Jack for doing that, because that would have been a bit of fun, I reckon, getting a chance to play with your two bros in senior footy. So no doubt we'll see all of those Woodhams up in the first grade side before too long, because they all kicked 1 in the end, I believe. But unfortunately, Woody, chair of footy, I hope the 6-shooter came out a little bit on the weekend, but of course, that doesn't count for the bag raiders in cup footy, unfortunately. But good to see that we had 2 bag raiders for the weekend.
That's it.
Munzilla kicking 5, of course, in our game, and the Pity kicking 7. And most exciting, can you play video on this?
I can,
Shane?
but I've got to have it ready to go, and I don't. You need to tell me
Oh
what you
well,
want. But anyway,
I blew it because I've got great video of Zach Munns doing what we're going to call the Munzilla. It's a full backflip when he kicked his 5th goal, and it was just a great coming off the antics the week before of course the Harvester, which I've got some video for that too. I've got videos of us actually doing the Harvester in unison in the commentary box, which I'm gonna get that out there soon. It was great fun to see. Just in case anyone's got any illusions as to how much we enjoy ourselves, you'll know for sure when this post comes out. But yeah, well done to the boys, and thank you for those celebrations too. We've got a few rivals for the double cobra now, haven't we?
We sure do. We sure do. We better get ourselves back on track, though. We are looking ahead at round 4 action. One game being called off for both the men's and women's cup, and that is the Newcastle City Blues versus the Terrigal Avoca Panthers. That'll be played on the 12th of July, so we'll still get that game. It'll just be coming to us in a couple of months' time. But in the women's, the entrance Baddo Bay are taking on Killarney Vale at home. This, once again, gives a Tier 1 team against a lower tier team. Corey, where do you think this one's heading?
Oh, Killarney Vale Bombers will win this one. It's only just up the road, so it's almost a home game for them. There's not a lot of, at best, I think 3 kilometres to travel from Adelaide Street to Passage Road, which is kind of odd. There's about 5 kilometres radius between the three the 3 main sides here on the Central Coast. So, but that aside, the entrance of Baddo Bay, the girls are improving every week. There's no doubt. But they've still got a little way to go before they catch up to the very well-established Killarney Vale Bombers outfit there. So I think the Bombers will win that one comfortably. The big wood will be on the entrance Baddo Bay girls just to constantly close the gap and the margin between these sides, especially looking back at last year, get that margin and then try and turn that around as best they can. So that's where it sits with me.
Yeah, so no, the same with me, fellas. I think Killarney Vale will do this one at least 6 to 8 goals. They've got a very, very good side lined up on paper here on Play AFL. Looking to see Vashti Moller light it up. She's threatened against Newcastle City a couple of times, but just hasn't gone on with the job. Interestingly, I'm pretty sure Gracie Jurek used to play for the entrance Baddo Bay, so switched across to Killarney Vale. So that'd be an interesting game for her. If I am correct, I'm pretty sure
I think you are. Yeah, you
played last year in the entrance.
Does her sister play for Terrigal? Is that her sister Nia Jurek? She plays at Terrigal. Is that right?
Not 100%, but yeah, I'm just having a very, very quick look.
So
now.
she played last year for the entrance. But
played 14 games for the entrance and kicked 9 goals. So be interesting to see how she goes against her old side tomorrow, and whether there's a goal celebration if she does get one. She's predominantly up forward. So look, for mine, they are the premiers for a reason. They were given a bit of a touch up by City a few weeks ago, but they showed their class beating Singleton by what I haven't had the chance to look it up, but I reckon it would be close to one of the highest individual scoring margins in Black Diamond Women's Cup history, 166 points. That was an absolute shellacking, and I think they'll go on with the job this week.
Yep.
Yeah, I tend to agree, Ash. I think it's just going to be a matter of by how much. And the other question from my mind is how many will Mia Wilson kick? Will she extend? Put a big margin on. We've got Kate Handley who will have to sit out the week because of the ground closure. Does Mia go out there and kick another 7 or 8 and really put some pressure on for that goal kicking trophy?
Yeah, put one hand on it.
Yeah, that's it. One thing I will be interested to see, we know that for Killarney Vale, Mia Wilson and then last year Crystal Brown were the absolute epitome of goal kicking brilliance. Number 22 for the entrance Baddo Bay is Mia Brown. So if you take the Mia from Mia Wilson and the Brown from Crystal Brown, to get Mia Brown, how many goals can Mia Brown kick tomorrow? So is she going to channel some of that power and kick a bag?
If she could kick Mia Wilson's total and Crystal Brown's total, that would be astounding.
Would be quite the task. We're going to be broadcasting live from Fayen Oval tomorrow, and we are going to be seeing Mourners Bay up against the Singleton Roosters. This does, I think, look to be a legitimately crackerjack game. Singleton, we've seen them cop a couple of big losses. Mourners Bay, we saw them have that big loss last week against Cardiff. This should be an interesting one. Ash, you've got a little bit of a connection to the Roosters. How do you think they're going to head to Warners Bay tomorrow?
Well, one of the biggest things about Singleton this year is talking to a few people around the club when I'm out and about in town. When I'm actually in town, to be honest, I'm not home very much in my own town to actually see anyone. But speaking to a couple of the people in the Roosters club, the biggest issue at the moment for the Roosterettes is the first one is their numbers in terms of what they can get on the park each week. And the second thing is the inconsistency of who they get each week in terms of availability. So it makes it really hard for them to try and get a consistency every week in what they do have. They're also missing their best and fairest over the last couple of years, and probably one of the best juniors in New South Wales in Molly Thomas, who currently is playing for the Sydney Swans Academy and doing quite well. She was in their best last week, and I think in a win against Tasmania. So she's sort of doing her own thing at the moment. But in saying that, in elevating herself, it leaves the Singleton Roosters quite short in terms of numbers. And something that's worrying me at the moment, boys, is I don't see a lineup for Singleton tomorrow. So
I was about to say the same thing, Ash.
I hope that there's some sort of plan to have a team. They did plug the fact that they're on Bar TV tomorrow. So look, all you can do is see what's on the park, but they're heavily reliant at the moment, the Singleton Roosterettes, on under-17s players that have come through the junior system. They're still not physical enough at this stage in terms of their own physicality to really hurt sides. But they are a run and carry team and a side that won't give up. Chloe Jones will be someone to watch tomorrow if she plays. And Faith Radmacher, if she goes around, will be someone to look for as well. Unfortunately, Faith's sister won't be playing. I think she's hurt herself and won't be playing for the rest of the year. Shout out to their pop, Pete, who'll be watching on Bar TV tomorrow. He's just had spinal surgery, so he won't be going too far. And I know he wants to tune in to Bar TV. So if you're watching this, mate, hope your recovery is all good. But with Warners Bay, look, they've been beaten quite heavily a couple of times, but against the entrance Bateau Bay, a couple of weeks ago, they really were in it for about 2 or 3. They were in it for about 2.5 quarters, from what I've been informed. And their side do have some good players. Jasmine Wellings is definitely one of them. The Trainors, Chloe Huggins, and obviously Amy Pittman's back in the team tomorrow, so that'll be a boost for them. Zali Burge is a handy player, and Jade Moody's one that if they can get the position that she plays right, will definitely be someone that can play a role for Warners Bay. She's a former national school swimming champion, and she's a product of 2 former Australian national athletes, Jade. So if they can play her in the right position and she can improve her basic skills, I think she'll be dangerous for them. She's actually a doctor studying orthopedics, so she's a very smart cookie as well, Jade. If it goes to I guess for mine, if you're looking for a tip, I think it's the battle of the midfields tomorrow. The side that can step up in that midfield and drive the football long and give their forwards a chance to score. They haven't done a lot of scoring this year, so it won't be something they're used to. But I think for mine, Warners Bay will be the team that sing the song at the end of the night, at the end of the afternoon. They'll win it by a couple of goals. Singleton coming through and winning the game won't shock me, but I think Warners Bay at home, they'll have the cattle on the park. They'll have the home ground advantage. They'll have their home supporters there, and I think that'll drive them to victory tomorrow.
What do you think, Chop?
Yeah, not much to add to that, really. I think Ash covered it all. I think Warners Bay will win it probably by a couple of goals, depending on what the weather does in the end. Amy Pittman's going to be a massive inclusion back there for Warners Bay. And just they played a little bit more footy in recent weeks too with I think, and that's probably just going to be a little bit of a roll on for them. They'll be desperate to get a win. So, yeah, I think it'll be. I think Singleton got them in the last round last year. Is that right?
Last year they did.
Last year, yeah.
Singleton came home with a bit of a steamroll last year and won a couple to sneak into fourth. So.
I think, I don't know, I just feel like Warners Bay have continued with that progress, whereas it might have just through a bit bad luck or lack of personnel or consistency on the park, whatever it might be. I just feel like Singleton may not have rolled on as well with it from last year.
Yep, fair call. Over in the men's at Pasterfield Oval, 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, the Cardiff Hawks will take on the Maitland Saints, and this one does promise to be another good game as well. We just talked in the previous games wrap up about how Maitland have got a lot of upside and how Cardiff are doing it tough at the moment, but not out of it. Certainly some bones there. Corey, how do you see this one playing out?
Yeah, this will be an interesting one. This is Maitland all of a sudden can look at this game in round 4 against last year's grand finalists and realistically think we might have a shot here and bring everything that they've got to Pasterfield. It's away games, not too far. Cardiff's not too far away from Maitland at the end of the day. They're pretty much the next town across. So I just feel like that could be a real motivator for Maitland tomorrow. However, Cardiff are still last year's grand finalists, no matter what the turnover in personnel is, new coach, whatever it might be. I thought Jack Pratt's game last week, I think, will be really telling in the fortunes of them. He played a great game. He kept his head clean and he was disciplined. He kicked good goals. I just feel like he's the type of guy who could have a really big influence on that playing group, and especially during the week. I don't know how much training they got to do, but I just feel like something will emerge, especially from that particular fellow there. And I could be wrong. I don't know the balance out at Cardiff too much, but I just get that feeling that Jack Pratt's a really important instrument in amongst that group and could be able to galvanise them. I like that. I like seeing Sam Howard out the front last week. I think he's got more to do in that role. And I do think that they'll be hurting from that Anzac Day loss last week. And that might be enough to kick them into another gear and back towards where they really are at. Even though they do have a lot of players that aren't there that were in the grand final side from last year. That's a troubling thing for me for Cardiff at the end of the day. But they've still got some great footballers there. There's no doubt about that. So I reckon their reserve grade side looked awesome too, and I reckon will look at bringing some players in from there. They've got a lot of depth there at Cardiff, from what I could gather. And one in particular was a fellow named Ray Stedman who kicked a bag in their plate side and looked unreal as a strong got forward. Did he get named by any chance?
No, he's not. No.
Wow, I don't know how. I don't know how he didn't. He was wicked. You agree with that? Did you guys see him play? I know you guys went. You guys went there. He kicked 5 goals and he was dominant. So I don't know why he wouldn't have got a selection. If he's not available, who knows? If anyone at Cardiff can give us a bit of a heads up on that, would be great, because he looked like, if I was selecting the side, he would have come straight in, especially knowing that they need goal kickers in that side. So I'm very surprised to see that didn't happen. That aside, I think Cardiff probably have got a little bit too much at the end of the day. However, if Maitland rocked them early, Cardiff could get shaky through the course of the game, and they may struggle to keep composure and whatnot. They look like they lost a little bit of discipline at times last week when Warners Bay went after them as such, which is not normally what you expect to see from Cardiff. So it'll be a close one, but I think Cardiff will get it in the end.
Ash, can you make a case for Maitland?
Maitland, well, they've got a few wins this week that are a little bit, I guess, different from what they had last week. They've got AJ Cunningham, who I've got absolutely nothing on, and Edward Hayden, who seems to be an interesting player. Played for the Fitzroy Stars last year over in, I believe it might be Victoria. I'm just having another quick look here to see how that all goes. He's in a Northern Football Netball League in Divi 3. So, that's a pretty strong comp, the Northern Football League. But if you're playing Div 3 Resis, I'm not sure whether that's going to come up to the muster, but we'll see how we go. Harry Cornford's a good young footballer who I like to watch, and he gives his all every week. He's back in the team. Ryland Hoffman, the big hands, and Clinton James is back in the team for Maitland this week. He was one of the tall timbers for, I believe, one of the tall timbers for Maitland in the first round against the entrance Baddo Bay, who was taking some marks but didn't really get on the scoreboard. So, they'll show some signs. I think they've just got to keep persisting with what they have. Riley Newstead's central to anything they do well. The Stewart boys, Xavier Stewart is a very good footballer, and Zach's even better. You're looking at people like the Russell, Xavier Russell, Charlie Walker's in the team, Jack Ellis. They've got a side there, Jared Inglis. They've definitely got a side to do the business, but it's whether or not they can sustain an effort and not make cheap turnovers at Pasterfield Oval, because it's that type of ground, Pasterfield, that if you do turn the ball over, it's not a ground where you can turn over, because you can give away meterage quite quickly at Pasterfield Oval, the way the shape of the ground is. I just think Cardiff, they showed signs last week of a side that could play well. I really like watching Jamison Bufler, and Jackson Kerr was great last week. And like you said, Chop, Praddy was outstanding in a losing side. I need to see more from Gretz. Sullivan did well. Braden Hawkins needs to show a little bit. Sam Howard.
Did he get injured last week? I thought he got injured.
I thought he was all right. Yeah, but just that little bit more, and he keeps keep working every week. As I said, Lachlan Manning was good. Fit and Tricky was great last week for him, a youngster from Singleton that came across when Singleton couldn't get a junior side. And they've got a couple of ins this week in Cooper Harridge and I think Ryan Thomas. I'm just trying to remember whether he was in the team last week.
He wasn't. Ryan Thomas played. He was probably best on ground. Him and Thomas Valeria were really good in their reserve grade side. Yep. But I had a quick chat with Ryan Thomas, and it sounded like he'd retired from first grade footy. But I imagine, because he suffered quite a big injury last year, but he's bounced back from it. But he was brilliant in the play side.
Interesting. In this week in the third grade side for Cardiff, I saw was Bo Heaney, brother of Isaac. So that'd be interesting. Bo was playing first grade a few years ago, so it's nice to see him back in the team and back playing footy. Which is
how old is he?
I couldn't tell you. I don't think he's maybe late 20s. I don't know. That's just a guess. So it could be. It's not an educated one either. But if we're going back to a tip, I think Maitland will push Cardiff all the way, but I think Cardiff will have enough just to hold on. 4 or 5 goals would be the margin. But if they don't set it up in the first half, Cardiff, they're going to start to be shaky, because when you concede over 18 to 20, when you concede 18 to 21 goals in the last 2 second halves, admittedly against 2 very good sides, Maitland have a fit young side that can cause.
Mate, they have a brilliant. Their midfield's midfield's fantastic, Maitland. They just need to be able to finish off up the scoring end. That's all. Their midfield's good as anyone's.
If they're close enough, Maitland, I reckon they'll put the fear of God into Cardiff. But I think 4 goals will be the margin to the horse.
Listen, I'm sick of agreeing with you guys. I think we've tipped the same for about the last 3 weeks, just about every game. So I'm going to go out on a limb. I'm going to take Maitland. Cardiff have lost Trent Thompson. I assume it was because of the shoulder injury we saw him go off with last week.
Big out.
So, maybe they're lacking a little bit of height there. I'm going to tip the Saints. I want to see them get their first win of the year. So I'm going to take them by 10 points. So there you go. Big call. Another big game, both these games in the men's cup are actually all 3 would have been fantastic.
Good games.
Newcastle and Terrigal had too. But the next game, the Entrance Baddo Bay versus Clarnydale at home for the Entrance Baddo Bay. This one looks really interesting as well. Chop. Both of these sides could make a real good go of it. I'm going to put some pressure on you now to tell us what you think and who you're going to tip.
Oh, well, I mean, straight off the bat, I think Clarneyvale will do it. Okay, I think they'll get the business done. They've just got a little bit more depth coming off a week off. It's going to be tough, because this is going to be a tough game for them. They really need a win, Clarneyvale. They really need that if they're going to be contesting this year. And I think they can. That might be a slow start for them, but they'll probably build their way up from, back in the field. I think they're currently sitting bottom of the ladder, aren't they? Is that right?
Yeah.
Right, so that's nothing to go by at all, though, in the end. The Entrance Baddo Bay are vastly improved. There's no doubt about that, probably more so even than I could have predicted, and I think that's a wonderful thing for the game overall. Are they improved enough to take Killarney Vale? That's going to come down again to how well their forwards function. I think Killarney Vale are another one of those sides that probably need more in the forward line. They rely a bit too much on Brandon Lloyd to kick big scores for them, and he's always going to kick 2 or 3 goals every week without fail, and he'll feature in the top goal kickers at the end of the year again at that also. But he needs support up there, reliable support. So someone who every week is going to be kicking 1 or 2, he needs a couple of those to help out, because that's what the grand finalists are going to be able to do this year. They're going to have a spread of 6 goal kickers that are kicking goals consistently all year, and able to do that. So if one of them's down, then there's somebody else that can fill that spot. Kalani Vale need to unveil that. They need to find who those extra ones are. At the other end of the entrance, Baddo Bay, I haven't had a look at the sides. Is the Sharpie named again this week?
Yes.
So Sharpie and Scott Reed, dangerous. Plus, they've got a couple of other guys, Taff Lewis, who can kick goals up there. And they've probably, I reckon, at the moment, the entrance Baddo Bay have a better spread of goal kickers than what Kalani Vale do. So for them to have Kalani Vale to win this game, as I think they probably will be expecting to do, they need to unveil those goal kickers this week. They need to stand up. Ryan Arthur needs to kick a couple. Luke Flack needs to kick a couple. They've got other players up there. Lockie Henderson needs to kick a couple. They need to make that happen, right? And they need to support Lloydie up there. As far as the midfields go, I think that's where it'll be an interesting one, because they'll be very even. But the defensive line in Kalani Vale, I think, are far superior. So that's where I think they'll be able to possibly just keep their goal kickers limited, and they'll probably find a couple of goal kickers themselves. And I think that'll be the difference between the two sides. Won't be a huge margin, because I think the entrance Baddo Bay are clawing that margin back week in, week out. And I think they're on their way towards that stronger tier of sides, and we'll see them get closer and closer to it as the year goes by. I just think Kalani Vale will be too desperate to get a win this weekend, and they'll probably get them by maybe 3 or 4 goals. I don't think it'll be much more than that.
And Ash, we saw last year the Entrance Baddo Bay had their famous victory over Kalani Vale in this same round at Passage Road. Do you think they're a chance to do it again this year?
I definitely think they're a chance. Do I think they're going to win tomorrow? No. But I tell you what, if we did see them on the right end of the scoreline, it wouldn't surprise me. They've played so well this year. They've been gutsy. Nathan Harkness described them as the toughest physical side he's played, and so that's saying something. That this year I'm talking about, and that's saying something. He's played some pretty tough sides this year, Warners Bay. So to say that the entrance Baddo Bay hit them harder than anyone else is a pretty big statement for mine.
That was to round 2, though.
Yeah, well, they've played a few games. They've been hit hard. They're going to be hit. I don't know if they're going to hit too much harder than that, to be honest. I think they're a side that just keep going and going, and that's what I like about them. They don't have that. The old, I guess, entrance Baddo Bay where they stop halfway through, or they have a blip, or they do the undisciplined thing. They've got so much more purpose about their
working,
football.
don't they?
Yeah, they've got a great purpose to their football. They're disciplined for the most part. They've got excellent young fellas, and we've mentioned them already. I mean, Scott Reed just adds a great dimension with his experience. And, I talk about Kyle Lawther every week. I think I love the way he plays. I mean, yeah, can he be a little bit more level-headed at times? Yes, but you need someone aggressive like that.
He's an enforcer.
Yeah, and especially in games like tomorrow, you need him. And I think he'll be one of the players that can play a role. Kalani Vale, they've got the cattle, but can they produce it at the right time? I think their inconsistency in the last couple of years have really hurt the team. I mean, when you mention some of these names, Mumford, Flack, Hector, Mifsud, Simmons, Lloyd, Kenobi, they're names that should be in a premiership side. They're good enough to be one of those sides on paper. Then you have Bobby and Simpson, guys, Castelnovo, these fringe players that are good. They're good, solid players, but they just haven't been able to manufacture consistent performances. So, I mean, it's just a matter of which Kalani Vale turn up tomorrow. An interesting player for mine is going to be their number 41 for the entrance Baddo Bay, Caden Evans-Andrews. He played in AFL Sydney last year and has played all of his junior football over there. He played for Pennant Hills in the under-19s last year, played a few games for them, and he gets his debut in first grade tomorrow for the entrance Baddo Bay. So congratulations to him. There's not too many changes to the team from previous weeks. Eden Pearson looks like a likely junior that's coming through as well. And
He's
what
a
we
gun.
saw, yeah, absolutely. And what we saw of Liam Parsi in round one gives me enough confidence to know that he's going to go places in football. Love Taff Lewis and how he goes about it. And, Kyle Robinson's one of my favourites as well. When you're going back to the tip, I think Kalani Vale's best is better than the entrance Bateau Bay's best. And that's not saying that the entrance Bateau Bay aren't good, but I think Kalani Vale's players, if they get it right, they're just a better team at this stage in their development. For mine, it'll be a dogfight, but I think the Bombers will withstand the challenge and win it by 3 goals.
Yeah, listen, I tend to agree, and I think the inclusions of Mifsud and Hector back in from that game we saw 2 rounds ago when they had the bye last week, they bring that little bit of mongrel back into the midfield as well, which they'll need up against Kyle Lawther. There could be a mongrel off there in the middle of Passage Road, which I think would be fantastic to see. But I think that Kalani Vale, by a small margin, 1 or 2 goals max. So, a couple of exciting games. Gentlemen, any final thoughts before we wrap this thing up and get ourselves ready to go tomorrow?
Well, we've got the plate game that we're hosting tomorrow, aren't we? At Fagan Oval between Warners Bay and Singleton, and it doesn't look like much on paper, but these sides sitting at the bottom of the ladder in a 15-team competition, if they want to have any chance at that top 6 or 8 places, they're going to need to win tomorrow. Warners Bay, they've named a player who I think if he actually takes the field, will get a bag for us tomorrow, boys, and that's the only Mark Dignam. So I'm not sure who's going to man up for it, who's going to man
Is he named?
I don't know who's going to get the big dig for Singleton tomorrow, but they've got a task. They might have to go.
All I'd like to say is I would have loved it to have been rescheduled to Bateau Bay tomorrow, boys. That would have been so nice.
Yeah,
especially because I've got to vote tomorrow. I've got to get up early and vote tomorrow and then come up there, but we'll be there nonetheless. I just want to say, for the men's competition in particular, I think the results this weekend will show that we're in a good spot with Men's Cup. I know, I reckon a couple of close results, whichever way they might go. I know there's only 2 games being played, and if the 3rd game was being played, that probably would have been equally as close too up there at Newcastle City, but it's not being played. But 2 close results tomorrow between 3 of those sides are really fighting hard to try and make their way into the move their way up the ladder. There's no doubt, and one of those is obviously a grand finalist from last year. But if we see a couple of close results tomorrow, I think it's a nice indicator that we're in a good spot and the sides are closer than what we have seen in years gone by. So I just want to wish all the players out there tomorrow. There's a lot of young blokes playing in the sides tomorrow. So I'll just say thanks to them for the hard work that they're doing. I know it can be really tough on young guys, especially when they get first grade opportunities at sometimes a little earlier than they should be, but they're doing such a fantastic job propping up the league and keeping things moving in the right direction. So I'm looking forward to the footy tomorrow.
Yeah, it was a bit of remiss of us, Shane, unfortunately, that there's no rep squad sides out yet. I know there's been selections made, and there was a press release due today, I believe, but it hasn't come out yet for the rep footy next week at Blacktown International Sports Park. All the sides have been named, apparently. All the squads have been named. It's just a matter of them being released on a press release. So It's a real shame they're not out, because it would have been nice to be able to speak to them tonight.
Yeah. We'll talk about them next week anyway, I assume. We'll squeeze a little bit of it on the grill in there before
we will indeed.
Absolutely. Well, you've got your boys, Corey and myself commentating the AFL South Coast versus the AFL Hunter Central Coast at Blacktown next week. So the one thing's for sure that
the finest representative commentary team will be on display. That's for sure.
It'd be great. It'd be terrific. And then we're the alleged curtain raiser to the AFL Sydney Canberra match. I don't know. It's just Sydney and Canberra. What on earth are they talking about?
Yeah, they might change. They might change their mind, mate, once they see the replays.
Absolutely. It'll be a great weekend next week. But we've got the 2 games tomorrow. Looking forward to going to Fagan Oval and highlighting the Singleton Football Club tomorrow. They are a cup team in the women, so they do deserve their day in the sunshine. It's good to be able to put them up tomorrow.
Yeah, and listen, I'm just really interested to see Mark Dignam in the twos. I think the goals he kicked last week where he was a bit lucky. I'm actually think that maybe Nathan Harkness dropped him because he got a couple of cheap ones there, and he gave away that 50 to Pratt. So I think
Oh,
about time
I can
Nathan.
see.
About
I
time
can see a
Nathan made
little.
the big call and put the dig back in the 2. So I hope he does all right tomorrow.
Well, I
Do you
reckon it was
reckon?
the spray he gave us after the game. I reckon that's why he's in the
Yeah,
Magoo.
actually, is that? Yeah, do you reckon there could be a little bit of personal feeling going on here between the commentary crew and Mark Dignam? Yeah,
I just want on
that's a
record
poke.
I had Warners Bay in the final 4. That was Ash that didn't have him in the 4. Anyway,
That's a poke from Shane Darwin if I've ever seen one. I love it.
We are doing a half time. We are doing a half season ladder prediction too, fellas. I have to say that. Nah, thanks for the week, guys. Thanks for tonight. It's been a really good one. Sorry I was late again. I've had kindergarten enrollment meetings all day, and they went very late. So
nice, good fun. If we
been,
go
yeah,
any longer,
well,
I'm going to eat this whole packet of.
well, we're not going to go any longer. Tomorrow, 12 noon for the men's play, and then 2 p.m. for the women's cup. Live, free, and exclusive on the Kings of Live Sport Bar TV. Gentlemen, I can't wait to see you down at Fan Oval tomorrow. Everyone else, take care. We'll see you later.
Thanks, boys. See you tomorrow.